Hello everyone, my name is Angie Applegate and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction for Coppell ISD, and I will be walking you through our District Improvement Plan for 2019-2020. You'll notice that our format is similar to last year's District Improvement Plan as far as we are using the Plan for Learning software, and so all of our campus improvement plans will also mirror the format that we have. I will go briefly through the different areas since we do have some similarities from last year's plan to this year's plan, but this will give you kind of an overarching view to be able to see all of the pieces within our DIP this year. We start with our mission statement as well as our core values, and then we go into our table of contents area. Once again, when we're doing our comprehensive needs assessment as a district, there's the 4 core areas that we're looking at as far as demographics, student academic achievement, district processes and programs, as well as perceptions. You'll notice that we have our priority problem statements as well as comprehensive needs assessment data, and then our overarching goals should look similar because those are our goals that we used last year, as well as these will also be mirrored in our campus improvement plans. Moving on, I'm not going to go into too much detail right here, but our comprehensive needs assessment is developed in those 4 different areas. Thank you so much to Janice Duffney, who helped gather some of the data that we have here within our demographic summary as far as our staffing, and then we have our problem statements down at the bottom of that area as well as the root causes that go with each of the problem statements. The next area is our student academic achievement, and thank you so much to Debbie Youngs and Susie Williams for helping to pull some of this data, and you'll notice that this data really hones in on some of our STAR performance as well as end of course exams for the district that relates to our standardized testing, of course, from the state. You will notice at the bottom of that data that we also have, once again, our problem statements and also our root causes that we have. And these should look similar from last year because we didn't have a whole lot of tweaks to those different problem statements and root causes at this time. The next piece is, of course, district processes and programs. So you'll see a summary there that tells some pieces about the district, as well as some of our strengths and, once again, our areas of need with our problem statements. Then you'll have the perception summary that talks a little bit more about our strategic design work and then some of our next steps as we go into this 1920 school year. And then here we have the problem statements once again, along with the root causes that tie to that specific area. This is just a highlight of those problem statements so that they're carved out more so you can go through and look at those different pieces. And then here is the comprehensive needs assessment. This is some of the data that was actually gone through and looked at when we're thinking about our district improvement plan, as well as you'll notice some of these pieces too when you're thinking about our campus improvement plans. We're going to move right along into our goals. As you'll notice, once again, our goals did say the same from our plan from last year. So what you'll notice as a difference this year are in some of not only our performance objectives that we may have, but also too within some of the strategies. So as we're going through here, for example, this piece right here with high priority learning standards was updated due to some of the work that was happening this summer and how that will then impact the pieces as we're going through this school year. So once again, I'm just going through the overview right now. You're going to get a copy of this plan to really dig into and go through to be able to ask questions and look at how all of the different pieces come together. Once again, just a reminder within our plan for learning software that we have, as we're going throughout the year, we have formative checks that happen within November, February, and April, as well as our summative check for our plans within June. As you'll notice within the plan, because of how this prints out for us within the software, all of the areas when we have our goals, such as goal number 1 with performance objectives, there are problem statements that are also tied to. So each of these problem statements that we identified go back and tie to the overarching goals and strategies that we have identified. So moving on through this, you'll see once again just performance objectives and the various strategies that we have. You'll notice one of our new pieces right here is NWEA MAP that we will be rolling out this year. Another area that we're really focusing on again is the Schoology AMP component that we purchased within Schoology, allowing for common assessments. As we're moving along, this piece, as far as performance objective 3, is really going to be looking at engagement, as well as really tying to some of the different things that we're doing, not only with our digital learning pieces, but also with our community-based accountability system that we are looking at for a district. Moving along and thinking about how we are supporting and continuing to support our EL learners in CISD. You'll notice this is a goal that we're continuing from last year. And then we will have some more pieces that we're working through with professional learning communities and RTI as well. Specifically, this is a new goal that was added that is really looking at how we're being appropriate with our interventions for special education, 504, as well as our RTI Tier 2 and Tier 3 learners. And then continuing to move on, we're always continuing to look at how we're closing those gaps within our accountability system that is tied to all of the different pieces for learning for our standards-based assessments that do happen from the state, but we do know once again that it is not all about STAR. And so you'll notice within our plan, we're really reflecting on a lot of different areas within that. Continuing to move on through the plan. We're continuing to use our digital portfolios as another area. So you'll see some of those pieces that are continuations from last year, as well as really looking at how we are showcasing and assessing learning in a variety of ways. This is one of those pieces that's really tied to redefining success when we're thinking about that for our strategic design. Moving on, for goal number 3, you'll notice that we're still looking at well-being and mindfulness, and you'll see a lot about social emotional learning embedded throughout our district improvement plan as we continue to work with all of our different constituents within the district as well as outside of the district in order to help provide those supports for learners, for our staff, and for families. Continuing on through our plan, once again, working with translation tools in order to make sure that we're providing equity with all of our resources that we have, as well as specifically thinking about our DLI programs that we have available at campuses. Continuing looking at equity across the board, and here's one of our new strategies too. We're really looking at developing an equity policy within CISD to ensure that we're having that equity for all stakeholders and just really kind of digging in and looking at some of those pieces. One of the pieces that our administrative services side is actually going to be looking at some of our discipline data to look for equitable practices for all learners. Continuing to look at behavioral needs. Once again, working with our Social Emotional Advisory Council that we had started this year to keep going with next steps for what we're doing for social emotional learning. And then, of course, within our district improvement plan, we always have pieces where we're not only looking at inclusivity, but also just safety as a whole. So we're going to continue with some of those goals that we had last year with our standard response protocol. We're looking at our Navigate software management platform that we have for our apps, as well as really looking at that mental health piece for our district. The final goal that we have is looking at that organizational improvement and strategic design and how all of our processes are coming together as a whole within the district. And so once again, of course, our goals with PLC that are continuing into this year, really looking at how we're making sure that within our professional learning that we are collaborating with all of our departments to gain insight into what their needs are for their department's professional learning. Moving ahead, of course, once again with our community-based accountability system, looking at RTI and PLC, once again, just within the processes that we have as a district. Communications was a huge focus this year, and you'd notice that we're going to continue on with that this next year and really looking at how we're leveraging multimedia platforms such as Facebook Live, as far as our website, as well as other video components that we can have for all of our stakeholders. And some final pieces right here that are also new for this year within organizational improvement and strategic design. As you know, we're going to have a CISD facilities committee that will be coming together in order to gather feedback, really creating a plan, but also just looking at some of those action steps for what we need to do, as well as reviewing some of those pieces such as safety for all buildings, as well as looking at accessibility features. And then our final piece right here, as we've been streamlining and purchasing a lot of different resources for our campuses, and we're wanting to make sure that we are doing a good job of keeping up as a district with all of those purchases that we do have, we are looking at implementing a specific inventory system that will really help us do a better job of keeping track of not only purchases that we have with our local funds, but also looking at our federal dollars and making sure that we have all of those pieces barcoded, but as well as just making sure that all of those resources are being utilized. So kind of just looking at that data once again to ensure that we're really getting everything that we need out of the resources that are being purchased. And that wraps up our district improvement plan right there. We will have more updates for you just on next steps, as well as we appreciate any feedback that you might give.